What's up, y'all? Talon here. Today I am back for the first time in a long time with a new video. Going to be doing something a little bit new on the channel. I haven't really done one of these. It's like not really going to be an unscripted vlog. If you see me looking at the screen relatively frequently, I have some bullet points of what I want to cover today. So yeah, I guess I'll just hop into it. The last couple months when I haven't been uploading, I've been spending most of my recreational time with Pokemon, preparing to compete in the Pokemon World Championships, as well as just actually trying to qualify. Before I released my last video, I kind of was behind in the championship points race to qualify for the World Championship, but I made a pretty solid push at the end there. Ended up hitting up some cups and ultimately did pretty well at North American Internationals, making, I think, top 64, which was enough to clinch the invite for Worlds. And at that point, I was like, all right, let's give it 100% and try to do our best at the World Championship, which I did. I actually was able to make it into the top cut bracket there, ultimately losing in the top 32 to top 16 win in, which was unfortunate because that's like $5,000 that I don't get, but my opponent played better, so I can't be too upset. I'm definitely going to make a video on how I did that, specifically the preparation throughout the season and coming into the World Championship, as well as the practice habits that I worked on developing. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But right now, I just want to talk about the experience of Worlds specifically, as well as how it relates to my future as a competitor and my past, and I guess as it relates to this channel and content in general. So I guess the last couple of months, I've been thinking a lot about what I get out of the game from both competing and creating content, as well as commentating. If you haven't been tapped into the grassroots scene, I've actually been doing a lot of commentary as well, just because that's another goal I have within the game, is actually to at one point commentate an official event. Whether that ever happens for a variety of reasons, I'm not entirely sure, but it's just something I like to do, like to develop. It's just another facet of the game that I enjoy, so going to continue working on that. But I've been thinking a lot about what I get out of the game in all aspects, both as a competitor, a content creator, and a commentator. And honestly, coming into this season, I was really not happy with what I was getting out of the game as a competitor. I'll be able to talk about it a little bit more, but basically just going to a tournament and not coming prepared to be able to battle against the best in the world. I was still doing relatively well, making day twos pretty consistently, but when I was playing someone who was like a Worlds level competitor, I often felt like it was kind of a coin flip on if I was going to be prepared enough to actually give them a fight, or if they're just going to steamroll over me, which wasn't really fulfilling for me at all, even if I was doing well and beating the people that I should be beating. I know that in the past I'd been at the level where I could beat those really solid players, and not being at that level and not having the time to make sure that I was at that level was really disheartening. And so truthfully, this season, I was having some considerations about stopping competing, maybe focusing full-time on content. That was what I was thinking about coming into the World Championship, was really not entirely ditching competing. I'd still be competing at tournaments, but really putting more focus into the content and commentary side. So part of that's changed a little bit, but I think to go into that, I do think I need to provide some context both on myself coming to the World Championship and my overall history in the game, since I've covered that a little bit on the channel before, but never in great detail, and never really the emotional side of it, which I think is pretty important to me. I don't know if sensitive is the right word, but I've always been very interested in the emotional aspect of the game, as well as how it shaped me emotionally, not just the actual gameplay of Pokemon, has been a pretty key part of my life. So I think I'll go into that now. Yeah, so for those unaware, I've actually been playing for 15 years now. I started in the 2010 Juniors Division, won my first regional ever, and since then I've been competing pretty sporadically. I wouldn't say I've ever had like a really full-time year. I never went to more than 4 events in a season, and that includes nationals and worlds, so like really only like 2 regionals max. So yeah, and the reason for that, I guess Pokemon was never discouraged, but I kind of had this idea that I had this self-imposed guilt where balance was always kind of tough for me. I've always been a very all or nothing person, so I would put my all into Pokemon for a period of time, and then I would burn out for whatever reason, whether it, regardless of whether I did well that year or not. I would kind of just burn out due to putting too much time into it, and then I would put my time into something else, whether it be school, sports, social life. It would always be one of those. But all that's to say is that, yeah, even though I've been playing since 2010, I don't feel like I've ever been an all or nothing Pokemon player. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of my friends even, have really put their all into this game. Like I've known Aaron since I was a kid. I've known Wolf for a long time as well. And that Pokemon's always obviously been a very key part of their lives, both personal and professional. And that kind of just never was the case for me. Honestly, due to a lot of self-imposed guilt. I don't know if that's mainly cultural, like kind of like a weird puritanical Catholic thing where it's like you feel you enjoy doing this, you're good at it, but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, whether it be career or school or whatever. Regardless, yeah, that kind of kept me from going full on Pokemon for a long time. And the years that I did really well, like I won a Masters Regional in 2015, and in 2018, I won my second Masters Regionals after periods of, I think, like a full year of a break. I just came back and won a regional, which is not really a coincidence. I think those regional wins actually coincide with some of the hardest experiences of my adolescence. Not going to go into too many details, but definitely kind of tricky times in my life. And I more or less just drowned myself in Pokemon practice to distract myself, which wasn't healthy. And I kind of recognized that, especially in 2015, having already done it in 2015, basically recognizing, okay, I put my all into this, I won a regional, and I don't feel better. Like my life tangibly hasn't changed. I've won a bit of money. I have some like recognition in the scene, but it hasn't really changed how I feel as a person or my personal life outside of Pokemon. So after that point, I kind of made the effort to scale down. I was able to qualify that year, 2018 specifically, for Worlds on a technicality. Basically, if you didn't know, I needed top 32 at Nationals to make the World Championship. I got 33rd, and then someone in like the top 8 got caught trying to scoop, basically, or ask someone to scoop, and they got disqualified. And so all the players got bumped up one. And myself, I got top 32 at that point as the one in the bubble, so I was able to qualify for Worlds. Another player at top, who was ranked 65th, I believe, also is in the same situation where they got Worlds off of that. So shout out to that player. If you know, you know. But yeah, this was, I don't think I realistically should have qualified for Worlds that season. I went to another regional, didn't do very well while I was studying abroad in Paris. And then I came back from Paris with like a week left to prepare for the national championships. And I did pretty well. I got top 32, on the technicality, but I still don't think I necessarily should have been at the World Championship. So at that point, I'm thinking, okay, this is my freshman year. Next year, I have to work on really making sure I have an internship and really setting myself up for the future. So in my mind, the 2018 World Championships was kind of going to be it. I thought I'd, at some point compete in Worlds again. I didn't know when, but I thought I would definitely need to settle down in life, and maybe that would take way longer than I expected, and maybe I would, settle down and realize that I didn't want to play Pokemon again. So for all intents and purposes, in 2018, I was thinking, okay, this could be it. So I gave it my all. And just backing up a bit, this wasn't my first Masters World. I had made it in 2015 and 2016. 2015, I did pretty poorly. In day one, I went like 2 or 3, or maybe 3 and 3 before I dropped. Could have been even 2 and 4, honestly. Quite a bad tournament. And then 2016, I went 5 and 1 in day one, beating some really strong opponents like Jonathan Evans, who would eventually make the he would make finals, losing to Wolf in that famous finals. Really bad matchup, was able to beat him there against Metaboo, another strong player. Really uphill battles, essentially, but I was able to win, so it was really good confidence boost, especially seeing how well John Evans did after the tournament. It was like, okay, yeah, I can beat these people. But I did have an early elimination in day 2 after the strong start. A bit of bad luck. That was kind of 2016 in a nutshell, but could have played better. No doubt. But regardless, if you can just go into my mindset at this point, I've had 2 kind of lackluster Worlds. So 2018 was really going to be it, maybe my final chance to do so. So I gave it my all, practiced extremely hard that whole summer after I got back from Paris. And I really think I gained a lot of mastery of my team. I went 7-0 undefeated in the first day of competition. I beat players like Gabriel Agati, Wolf Glick. I think I played Snow as well. And was able to win all those sets. So yeah, that was a huge confidence booster for me. Wolf actually gave me a lot of praise for my play. I played him earlier in the season, and by no means was the set that good. He pretty much just walloped me. So I think he was a little bit impressed by maybe I showed him that I wasn't quite the pushover that he thought I was. And so I got a little bit of respect from that. So that meant a lot. Obviously, Wolf at the time, he'd already won the World Championships, probably considered the best American player at that point, outside of maybe better than Blake Hopper, but Blake Hopper was maybe one of the second most respected players, at least from the period of 2014 through 2016, when he got 3 consecutive top 16s at Worlds. He was also my local. He was kind of my, I don't know if I would call him a mentor. He was a really close friend, and also a rival, not because I was as good as him, but I was like kind of close to as good as him, but he would always beat me at locals. If we ever played at a tournament, basically he would have my number just by the skin of my teeth, and I always felt extremely outclassed by him. So I kind of just set that like top six, his opinion meant a lot to me basically, and top 16 at World specifically meant a lot to me as well. So yeah, Blake, after my 7-0 run, I don't think he's playing too much VGC at this point, but basically tweets out words of encouragement saying, watch out for me in day 2. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. 2 of my idols have now, recognized that I've gone 7-0. They are showing some respect to me. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the year that I top cut the World Championships. I prove I'm on these players' levels, and that's not really what happened. I had a pretty heartbreaking failure in day 2. I think I was eliminated by round 5 on 0-2. I'm able to win out into 2-2, and then I think I play Jeremy Odena. I'm playing like Mega Charizard Y, and he has a very scary Tyranitar team with like a max speed Terra Electric Zapdos, and I make it close, but ultimately, yeah, he plays better in the game 3, and I lose, and I'm out of the World Championship after a really hot start with the best prep, truthfully, I've ever put into a tournament ever. So that was kind of where it felt like it ended for me. I don't think I ever got back to that peak in future years, and I never really even tried to, just because I was so really beat down by that experience. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot going on in my life. Really, sophomore year of college on, I think, was huge for me. Like, it was really positive. I think, like, don't necessarily feel bad just because I, had a rough tournament or something at Worlds. But after that point in college, like, I really turned around my academic life, my interpersonal life. I got a girlfriend who I'm still with to this day. Actually, met a lot of friends that I'm really grateful for, got involved in a lot of student organizations on campus at UT Austin. So yeah, I ultimately, maybe it was better for me that I didn't continue playing Pokemon as competitively, but definitely complicated my relationship with the game. There's no doubt about that. So after that point, I kind of started dabbling, every once in a while I'd come back to Pokemon. I would dabble a little bit in streaming for a little bit. Shout out to the OGs who remember the Talon VGC Twitch stream. Was doing that for a couple months. I'd usually go to like 1 or 2 stray regionals, not usually the national championships, just because I had no chance to qualify for Worlds, and it generally wasn't in that great of a location. But yeah, I think the last Worlds I went to as a spectator was 2019, and then after that I hadn't competed. I didn't make a Worlds push, and I didn't attempt to spectate Worlds ever again until this year, actually. So yeah, we fast forward to the Scarlet and Violet era. We're mostly going to skip Sword and Shield. I didn't do a whole lot outside of Twitch streaming for that time. I think I went to 1 regional where I got top 32 before losing in that top cut, which was fun. Once again, didn't put a lot of prep into it, so was pretty happy with that top 32, even though I didn't go that deep in the tour. But yeah, fast forward to Scarlet and Violet era. I'm out of school at this point and working. I had a pretty rough, after school, like, I graduated and I herniated a disc, and it was just like really bad pain for a couple months. So I had to stay with my parents for a bit and then wait for the surgery. Once I got the surgery, I had to rehab. And then finally I was able to actually start moving on with my adult life. But with that, I took a little while to settle in, worked a job I didn't like at all, and then was able to find a job that I actually did like. At which point I was like, all right, I finally settled into my adult life. I feel comfortable. I feel like I have a lot of balance in my life. And so I decided to start getting involved in tournaments again and basically throw that balance entirely off. As I mentioned earlier, self-control, balance, kind of not my strong suit at the time. Basically, discipline was just something I was really bad at. So really in the past, I never really had problems with pressure during the games, but the all or nothing nature of my prep and the approach towards the tours was causing me to rapidly burn out. And that kind of continued here, where, especially with the longer seasons in the past, I could get away with it. I could grind hard for 2 or 3 tournaments, and that's all I would need to do in a year. And if I didn't do well enough at those 3 tournaments, it's like, I didn't think I deserved Worlds anyways. So cool, just a really big break. for me, but you can't really do that anymore unless you just win a regional, basically. So, yeah, the 2023 and 2024 seasons, I kind of just kept up with that crazy prep where I would just grind Pokemon Showdown all night, grind every team that I could get my hands on until I figured out what clicked the best for me, trying to understand the meta game through just like sheer volume. And although I think that was pretty effective, I got, some pretty solid finishes. Despite that though, I was pretty dissatisfied because leading up to a tournament, I would find myself like really sleep deprived from playing Pokemon Showdown all night. And then going into work the next day, I was getting kind of irritable in my personal relationships just near a regional cycle. Like I was noticing this, the people around me were, and my stress in general was just like really crazy. And I kind of recognized this pretty early. Someone was like, just relax, bro. You're like tweaking out at the tournament before the tournament, but you're kind of just like chill during the tournament. You need to like relax. It's just a regional. And I guess for context, when I was, for the majority of the time that I was competing, when you're only going to 1 or 2 regionals a year, it's basically as important as any international or any other tournament. It's do or die. You need to do well there or your season is going to die. So that's kind of how I was approaching tournaments, even though that didn't necessarily have to be the case. I had plenty of PTO. I had plenty of money. I was making good money at my work. So like I could have been traveling to multiple regionals and kind of taking the pressure off of each one, but I still was just like sticking to old habits stubbornly. But yeah, all that is to say, I was getting extremely stressed before these tournaments, and I knew this was the case, and I started trying to figure out how to deal with that, how to make that less of an issue. And so one of the reasons I actually started this channel in 2023 in that season was a way to work on this. So basically the idea was, instead of having to kickstart every 3 months from scratch on whatever metagame for whatever tournament I wanted to go to, uploading consistently would make me engage with the game throughout the year. So I didn't have to start from nothing every time, which that definitely helped. And I think at this point, 2023, like late 2023, early 2024, I started trying to change my mentality to be more content with giving each event my best. Not necessarily like how well I did results wise, but just giving it my best in my prep and being happy with the result regardless. But it still definitely wasn't perfect. I remember, I think Charlotte 2024, I was texting Toller Webb before the tournament, who's a friend, basically he said that he was really confident he'd seen my prep, that I was definitely going to do well. I had, done everything I can. And I agreed. I was like, totally, I feel pretty solid for this tournament. But in spite of that, I feel like I don't want to be here. Like there was this sense of dread that I had being there that was really unfamiliar, truthfully. I used to really look forward to competitions, like the chance to prove myself, the chance to compete against the best in the world. But this time I just didn't want to be there. I felt obligated to be there. I resented that obligation. I dreaded having to play my matches. And that was a pretty startling feeling. And it kind of made me take a step back after that season. Cause as I mentioned, I really need, like all my ducks have to be in a row interpersonally for me to want to play Pokemon. But yeah, I recognized this was a pretty important problem. And so after kind of dropping that season as a result, I did go to nationals. I basically needed to like top 8 or top 4 or something to get the invite at that point, but I did pretty well. I think I got like top 32, maybe top 16. No, I think it was top 32. But yeah, I did really well. I was 1 game away from cut. Not that I was like playing a win and in, but I had a solid record at that tournament. No, that's not right. I might have been 2 games away from cut, but regardless, a pretty solid finish for me. But nowhere near making Worlds, and I was content with that. I didn't want to go to Worlds at this point. I needed to take care of myself, my mental. And that was really my goal coming into 2025. I had a soft goal of qualifying for the World Championship just because I hadn't done it at this point in 7 years, and I wanted to give it an honest shot. But really my goal for the season was actually to attend 6 events this season. And the reason for this was, as I'd mentioned, the intense stress of going to each event was really debilitating. It made me not want to prepare for events. It made me not want to register to them in the first place. And my idea was, you know what, let's do some exposure therapy. If I start just going to these events, whether I do well or I do poorly, the exposure and just experiencing it and understanding that this isn't life or death, this doesn't matter, it's not going to change your life substantially regardless, was hopefully going to help me really combat this anxiety I was feeling around this game, this dread. And speaking a little more in detail about that, this was really difficult for me. I think I ended up canceling 2 or 3 events I'd registered and fully prepared teams for and was doing incredibly well on ladder with. I was, by all intents purpose, locked in for these events. But the coming days before the tournaments, I would have such intense stress, such horrible anxiety. I would become incredibly irritable. And this was a new one. I'd get these real bouts of hypochondria where I'd just be extremely sensitive to my health. I'd think, okay, I'm certainly sick. I have COVID. I have, I think there was like a hurricane flying over the continental US at some point. And I was like, you know what? I have a flight through Florida to Kansas regionals. I have to cancel. Like, I'm not going to risk my life or just getting stuck and having a miserable time in the airport to make it into the Kansas regionals, even if I think that I have the call for the event. I ended up cutting Toronto later in the season with it for a similar version. So by all intents and purposes, was feeling very good for this tournament, but the stress just caused me to basically cancel my flight. And this happened, or something similar happened to it, like maybe once or twice throughout their season. And so, yeah, I knew there was some level of dysfunction that was going on, but eventually I was able to push that stress aside and actually force myself to go to the tournaments, and I did fine. Not incredible, not, a deep push in the regional, but I was consistently day 2ing. I was inside of cut pretty consistently. Whether I made it or not was, kind of a not that consistent, but I was fine with that. I was going to the tournaments. I went to 6 regionals. I think it was actually 5 regionals and 1 national that season. And I was able to qualify for the World Championship. So mission accomplished on both ends, but really attending the 6 events was a big deal for me. By basically North American internationals, I was honestly so relieved by how my mentality had changed towards the game. My pre-event prep was becoming way less time intensive. I was doing more replay review, more collaboration with friends instead of just like spamming the ladder by my lonesome in the middle of the night. And I kind of felt free in a way after a decade of just like really stressful preparation, basically, and a horrible relationship with the game. I felt like I'd finally turned a point where I could actually prepare for a tournament without it disrupting my life. And so I was really set up really for the rest of my life. I feel set up for the rest of my life to actually play Pokemon without it just consuming everything, which is a big deal for me. And so, I was able to qualify for the World Championship while also completely realigning my relationship with the game, how I practiced, and how I engaged with it. And that was really the biggest accomplishment of the season to me, even before the World Championship. So I could take the season as a success. So really pressure was off at Worlds for me. I should kind of touch on this though, that before I made my finals Worlds push, I guess after Toronto regionals, I took like a month break to focus exclusively on one video just because throughout all this I'm creating content still, but it's not content I'm particularly proud of. I think I'm providing pretty solid analysis, good resources to the community, but it's not really creatively fulfilling. So I'm like, okay, let me try making a very stylized, edited video. And I made a pretty solid video about Wolf, basically top 5 Wolfie moments, and that went fairly viral. It was easily my most popular video. It's like at this point creeping up towards 500K. It's like I guess at like a quarter or a third of a million views right now. I kind of expect at some point for it to hit 500,000. So pretty proud of that. And it was really fulfilling to make. I enjoyed the process. Even if it had flopped, I was pretty happy with how it felt creating that, writing a script, etc. So I kind of realized I had a passion for that as well. So, but yeah, after that point, I thought, okay, cool. Kind of lesson learned. It gave me some things to think about that maybe I could just focus on content instead of competing, but I wanted to give competing this season a good shot. Like I said, I had that 6 event goal, so I wanted to hit that. So I did hit that. Fast forward to NAIC, I qualified for the World Championships, and I am almost crying in the bathroom, actually. After 7 years, I'd qualified for Worlds again, and it was kind of a big moment. I didn't really let that show to anyone. It was kind of just between me, myself, and I shared with my girlfriend, of course, and people I was closer to. But yeah, I was really excited. Even though I hadn't had like a bombastic season by any means, I was able to do good enough to be like 65th or 64th in the world or in North America. So that was huge. And so with that, I'd qualified for Worlds. I'd changed my mentality. There was no pressure. I already thought the season was a success. And so with that, I kind of went into Worlds. I'd done a lot of work to reframe my relationship with the game. I was able to reframe Worlds as not an obstacle to be conquered, not like an objective, like I need to get this finished to prove that I am, as good as, the people I respect think I am, or how good I think I am. No, I was really just there to give it my best shot and really just treat it as a celebration of what I was able to accomplish that season in terms of changing my relationship with the game. And that didn't mean that I was just going to go easy. It was my first time attending as a competitor since 2018, as I mentioned, but I am still a pretty competitive person, so I wanted to do my best. But I also didn't want to undo all the progress that I made, so I prepared in the same way that I had been doing, just very intentional practice, trying to every ladder session learn a specific thing, whether it be figure out which tools explore tools on certain archetypes that I like and see if it's something that I might gel with or not, so that I can kind of exit out and not put any more mental energy towards it. So I think my prep for Worlds this year was actually really excellent. I have some room for improvement, specifically about team selection, kind of still being last minute in spite of everything. But yeah, I think my preparation, like how I qualified for the World Championship this year, is kind of interesting. I do intend to make a video about it, just going over the team I chose, how I picked it, and everything in between that decision. Basically everything between qualifying for Worlds and actually selecting my team and competing in the tournament. So yeah, I'll upload that maybe in a little bit after this, but right now just going over obviously the emotional aspects of it. So yeah, basically I'm practicing really primarily with the Calyrex Ice Rider Miraidon and Fede Campo compositions, but eventually I play Gavin Michaels on ladder with Kyogre, Calyrex Ice Rider Amoonguss, and after playing him, I think I lose. It depends on what archetypes I'm playing with. I think he beats me when I'm using CRR Miraidon, and Fede team I win, but regardless, I felt like, okay, this kind of feels like the best Amoonguss team I've seen in this format that isn't Calyrex Shadow Rider Zamazenta, which I don't see myself playing at Worlds. So Amoonguss is my favorite Pokemon. It's a Pokemon that I have had a lot of success with, so I thought, okay, let's give this a shot, and truthfully, I loved it. Didn't think too much more about it. I was like, oh, man, I'm throwing away a lot of practice on Fede team and Calyrex Ice Rider Miraidon to use this, but I have years of practice using both Amoonguss, Calyrex Ice Rider, and Weather, so I was like, you know what? After 2 laddering sessions, I locked it in. I didn't practice anymore. I was just like, you know what? Going off of just my game sense and really intuition, I feel like this is the call for me. I'm going to lock it in and not think too much more about it, and that's what I do. But yeah, despite all this, even with the last minute team change, throughout the process, I was incredibly confident in every decision I was making. I felt, regardless of what team I chose, I was, between 3 archetypes at one point. I was like, you know what? None of these are a bad decision because I feel confident in all of them, and I love playing all of them. And it was probably the first time in many years where I could confidently say that I loved playing the game. And that felt so incredible. To change my relationship from something that it felt like Pokemon, like I wasn't getting anything out of this game and it was actively harming me, to something that I felt like I was feeling fulfilled. I was having fun from playing the game. I can't overstate how much of a success that is in and of itself. Especially compounded with what was to come at Worlds, where I carried what I ultimately chose, the Gavin Rain team, into an incredible tournament where I finished 8 wins, 2 losses in the Swiss rounds to make the final bracket of the tournament. Ultimately, I did lose in top 32 in a set I'm not too proud of. I think even the 7-2 match in my win-in versus Patrick Connors, I'm not too proud of either. Really at 7-3, I'd seen Gio or 7-2, I'd seen Gio, a Texas player who definitely someone since like 2022, I've been rooting super hard for him and I've been vocal that he had the potential to be one of the best players in the scene. And just to see him finally top cut the World Championship after many years of hard work, it was really, really beautiful to see. I was almost crying watching him, almost crying. So yeah. But really, in my match against Patrick for the win and in, I don't think I played very well. And I also think against Tia Time in the top 32, I didn't play very well. And I think that wasn't an accident. I think I really deteriorated in my mental just because it's not that I didn't want to be there, but it's sort of that I felt maybe that I didn't deserve to be there, that it wasn't the right time for me to be there. These players like Wolf and Blake that I'd admired in my youth so much had reached these points, and I was like, these are the pinnacle of Pokemon. This is as good as you can be, essentially. And to be at the doorstep of that, having not put in the same level of like insane grind 2 a.m. Pokemon Showdown sessions, but having done it through like really mindful, slow and steady practice, it felt unnatural. It didn't feel like I'd earned it yet. Even though I had, like, the idea that maybe I had finally reached the level I'd been chasing for a long time and I hadn't even really made the push to do so. Like I'd been pushing to improve, but I didn't know that I was that close. And that shook me pretty hard. And I don't think I was able to shake myself out to give Patrick a good match. I was able to win because he missed like 2 Draco Meteors, pretty impactful, both of them, in both of the games. And I was able to basically convert off of that, just playing relatively safely. And then versus Tia Time, I think I basically had the winning plays locked in both times, but I was in both of the games just kind of playing, it was like, that's dumb. Like, don't do that. Just play autopilot. You're going to be fine. This is, I don't know why I went on to autopilot against these really phenomenal players. I didn't expect it to work. I knew it wasn't going to work, but I did anyways. I guess maybe I was playing with fear. I was playing timid just because my mental was just like shaken. But yeah, regardless, I do beat Patrick. And at this point, I've qualified for the top cut of the World Championship, which I almost started crying in the venue. My friend Blake, who I'd talked to, now a Pokemon Go player, was there to congratulate me. A lot of my Texas Day ones were there to congratulate me. And yeah, man, I was shook. And I didn't give it my best afterwards, but that's something that you can only be prepared for after having done it. And now I know what I'm capable of, and I know that I don't have to set the bar that low, and that I'm going to get there again. I believe that. I know that's the case. I'm going to get there again, and I'll be ready this time. But I don't feel sad that I wasn't mentally ready. Even if my play was ready, emotionally I wasn't ready for that moment, and that's okay. Like you would think it'd be like bittersweet, but it's not. I'm still just so incredibly proud of what I've been able to accomplish this season, and to be able to top cut the World Championship after 15 years of knew it was going to come out at some point. Yeah, to be able to top cut Worlds after 15 years of trying, it's unreal. I've gone through a lot in this game. I've come in and out so many times, so I knew that if I had been putting consistent work in, that I could do it one day. But as I've mentioned, I just felt like I didn't have the discipline to be able to compete long enough to actually, without breaking the rest of my life, actually be able to do that. So the fact I was able to do it this season means a lot. Yep, back to the notes. Honestly, I was also just thrilled to see Polar Bear doing that well, Geo. I was actually talking to Blake at Nationals. We were getting dinner, and I was just singing Geo's praises, basically. I was like, this guy's next. He like, you passed the torch to me as maybe the best Texas player. He is better than both of us have ever been. And so to see him prove that and just go off, for him to be ready for that moment, having prepared all season, really even in Regulation G for this moment, that was incredible as well. So, yeah, I have a lot more notes. Like, I guess at some point I decided in my notes that I wanted to be really cocky, basically saying that my play wasn't even really that good this weekend, but I just feel like I've raised my floor. I've raised my base ability to play this game so well that I was able to top cut the World Championships playing at like a 6 or a 7 in terms of prep. I will give myself like a 7. I think 6 maybe is a little poor, but yeah, it was just such a surreal experience because I didn't feel like I was outplaying my opponents so crazily that I didn't deserve to be there. It felt like I was, I was sweating a lot in a lot of the games, but I was not having to play absurd, crazy Pokemon. I was just playing my game and I was able to make the cut. Yeah, congrats to Geo, such a deserving world champion. And yeah, I'm really just working through all of this still emotionally, as you can see. I was kind of hoping I wouldn't cry, but I hadn't fully cried yet. I hadn't said it out loud yet. So there's definitely some of the later part of the tournament that I'd like to have those games back, but overall, I'm incredibly proud of everything it took to get me to Worlds this season and my actual performance there. But it's incredibly gratifying that despite not really, I feel like, playing at my peak, I was able to top cut the World Championships. And I think, I could have gone even further, even playing at that level. I was just like a couple plays away. So I know I'm going to be back there. But for now, this is the year that I top cut the Pokemon World Championship after 15 years of competing. And that's a huge accomplishment for me, but it's also given me a lot to think about. So basically going to be talking about the channel moving forward, basically talking about Talon the competitor versus Talon the content creator / commentator. As I mentioned, I'm an all or nothing type of person. And so having these competing ideas of like, man, I want to compete at the highest level. I want to be able to beat the most elite players in the world, but I also want to make something of this channel. I think I have a lot of potential to be a top 5 creator on this site, especially with Pokemon Champions coming out and coming fresh off of a World Championship top cut. I think I'm one of the more, at least competitively, one of the more competent creators on the site. And I think I'm also pretty savvy in actually creating the content. And even the edited stuff, I feel like I do have a high ceiling on if I actually put time into it. But the problem is it's very hard to compete at the highest level and put in the time that I think I need to, even though it's not as hard as before. I don't have to spend as many hours as before just because I've readjusted my practice. I still think it's too much time to be able to be a top content creator and also work on commentary as well. I'd mentioned that's something that I'm interested in. So yeah, the past season I really struggled creatively on the channel and making kind of quick content so that I could focus on competing, but not giving it my full effort while also not being a leading competition was really unfulfilling, which was part of what was really causing me some indecision. So basically coming into Worlds, my intention was, okay, I'm going to take a 5-month break from competition where I'm going to exclusively focus on content and practicing for commentary, running some practice sets with basically another commentator, and really put my best into both the grassroots circuit, really anywhere that would have me. So if you're interested in having a World's Top Cut commentator, I'm your guy. I've got a lot of experience there, but I'm sure there's not that many people watching. at this point in the video, especially not people looking for talent, so I'll shut up. But yeah, during that time, the idea was I wanted to work on developing higher effort creative videos on the channel, as well as trying to figure out how to market for Pokemon Champions, just being ready for that, because I do think that is going to be the biggest boom in competitive Pokemon history, and I want to be part of the group that is able to really expand Pokemon's influence from that. It can't all be Wolf and Moxie and Scraw and Aaron and James Beck. I think they're great at it, but I think I have the potential to be on their level in terms of content if I put the time in. So that was the intention. And the reason for that was before Worlds, I felt that I had more to offer to the game, and it had more to offer me as a content creator and a commentator than as a competitor if I was giving my all to one. So now I'm not really sure. I don't think I'm God's gift to Pokemon or anything like that, but I did feel pretty fulfilled with the World Championship. Like, I hadn't had fun like that in so long, and that I want to be careful of chasing that feeling because I do still care a lot about content. I still need, but maybe the answer is ultimately discipline, where I can do both. I just have to exercise better discipline as I have done this season. I'm not really sure. I think right now I'm leaning to taking a break from competing, which will be good for y'all. Lots more videos for Regulation H and just VGC history in general, and edited stuff. That's kind of the intention right now. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to make the push for Worlds, because Champions is going to be on Worlds. So it's like, yeah, I want to follow up and make the World Championship again and maybe go even deeper. But also, like, it's going to be so fun making content around that time. It just depends on when Champion drops, really. But yeah, I can't say for sure what my plans for the channels are, but at least in the near term, I expect more uploads related to competitive events, more timely, maybe event coverage, team coverage, as well as more creative projects related to the more advanced VGC topics. I have some really cool ideas related to that. Stay tuned. And then VGC history in general. So you'll probably also hear my voice on any grassroots tournament that will have me. Of course, TOs, let me know. Going to be honing my skills, because ultimately one of my goals is to be an official caster, at least at one event in my life at some point. I don't know if it would be a lasting thing, but it's definitely a goal of mine. So yeah, going to be working there. And then maybe in a couple of months after the break from competing, you'll see me back at the top tables making a run for a championship at a regional, internationals, or maybe the World Championship. We're going to just have to wait and see. But yeah, this has been a pretty long one. I'm going to try and edit a little bit to try and cut down some of the gaps. I still want this to come across like relatively raw and unfiltered, because that's largely what it was. But yeah, thanks for sticking around so far. Got kind of emotional in the middle there, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for sticking around with the channel thus far. It's going to be getting even better in the future. And yeah, thank y'all for sticking around, and peace, y'all.